All our shoulders is in there.
Gotta get my head in there. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, so you already know, man, Choose to Create podcast. You know, this is episode 10. I'm here with the one and only Max, the best business lawyer in town. I'm always around lawyers. I'm always hanging out with lawyers. I'm always like, because I love to hear like your ideas and like how you guys look at things totally different. And I feel like it's a good thing to have that balance as a content creator. We always want to be around other photographers, other videographers, and stuff like that. But I feel like it's important to network and talk with, you know, lawyers, accountants, people that do things that you don't do, so that way you guys could like learn from each other. So that's another reason why I have my brother Max in this building with me, episode 10. So Max, introduce yourself to the people a little bit.
Sure. I'm Max Levine from the law offices of Max Levine, as RJ knows. I work over here in Fort Lauderdale. I'm a business lawyer. I work primarily with creatives, and I try to keep my clients out of court and out of trouble, and then I try to get people in trouble when they're using my clients' stuff without their permission, or not paying my clients. So I work a lot on contracts, as you know. I work a lot on copyright. I work a lot on agreements with other collaborators, and then just basic business stuff like insurance issues and forming LLCs, trademark issues, and then again, a lot has to do with copyright. So the core of my business is working with creatives just like you, and I find it is such a great mix because you guys are a lot of fun to work with, and I feel like I can add value. You know, I help you guys make more money.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I was just talking with another content creator. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go see Max. I forgot who it was. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's the guy. That's the best guy in town, man. So how long the Max Levine office been around, man? How long you guys been doing that?
So I started that just in 2020 as I was wrapping up the sale of another business of mine. So I've been a lawyer since 2006, I want to say. And I had practiced at a very large firm and in a few different contexts, but my primary business was outside of law for about 7 years as I was building another company. And as I was wrapping that up, I kind of felt like, I've learned a lot as an entrepreneur. I think I want to bring that back to the law. And in 2020, I opened up my own business as an attorney.
Okay. So, like, as far as, like, okay, so you worked with a law firm, so you got some experience. But while you was working at a law firm, you started your own business.
Yep.
So, like, how was that experience? Like, is just as far as like being an entrepreneur, was it? Because I know, like, a lot of times when we have this idea of being an entrepreneur, at least for me, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start this business, it's gonna go, and then we're gonna make a lot of money.
Right.
How was it for you when you first had that idea and then actually running the business? How did that work out?
It was like getting smacked in the face. I think everybody who's had any success as an entrepreneur knows the difference between your perspective on day one and your perspective in year 7, right? So one of the smartest things I ever heard was that a successful person, somebody who fails, looks at the impediment that made them fail and say, why couldn't I just get over that? And then somebody who succeeds looks back and said, wow, how did I get over all of that, right? And you realize that in business, you can have a couple ideas, but when you actually try and implement them and try and make them work and generate success, there's a tremendous amount of work and execution required. So I looked around. I did my research before I got into business. I made a commitment. I put myself on the hook for a lot of money. I put friends and family on the hook for a lot of money. And then when you actually get in there, it was really tough, but we made it work. And 5-6 years later, it really worked out great.
Okay, awesome, yeah. And that like what you were saying, like with failure and even with success, it's like looking at failure, because every time I made an improvement on my business, it was from a failure.
Yes.
And even when I look at success, I always look at it like, okay, how we did really great here. Like, how can we create something where we are able to consistently create that same outcome? And then also with that, like, how can we make those improvements? Because there's always room to grow, right?
100%. And I tell everybody I talk to, a huge amount of my success as an entrepreneur was because I failed forward, right? So you fall, every time you fail, you dust yourself off and you say, what can I learn? What can I do differently? And how are we going to avoid that situation, prevent it, or maximize the value of it in the future? And so many of the things that we did that were beneficial to our business were the result of failures. And even from my clients, I get that all the time. Great example is another guy at GP, Adam, you may know him. He has an idea that, he's does programming, I think, and websites. And he had a concept like, hey, I got all these clients that they just stop. They just stop in the middle of a project, and I'm 70% finished, and they just don't talk to me anymore. So he's like, all right, I'm going to introduce a mothballing fee, right? Okay, if you stop responding to me, that's fine. But if you want to start that project up again, guess what? I'm charging you X to bring that out of storage, right? So he'll shoot a message to his clients, hey, we're just about to get to the point where I'm hitting you with that mothball fee. Do you want to get moving again? You want to start responding to me again? And I have no doubt that means he's getting paid more.
I need one of those.
Yes, everybody needs one of those.
Send that over. Send that over, Max. I need that. I actually just went through something like that recently, and and it happens a lot. It's like, okay, now it's the last time to get this thing rolling,
right?
And it's like it stops. But even with that, now I'm even going to the point of understanding of you know what, just finish it.
Yeah, and you're business to business. So and even when you're dealing with the clients personally, sometimes what you're doing for them is more important for you.
Yeah.
It's the core of your business, but it's not the core of their life, or it's not the core of their business. So you gotta hit them with the elbow once in a while.
Nudge them.
For sure.
And you want the feedback. So a lot of times, and that's the thing with working with the same. I work with how you said you work with creators, so you have the same kind of understanding of the things that they go through. And I work with the same type of people as well. Coaches, consultants, healthcare people, and stuff like that. So it's the same type of things that they usually go through. So now I'm like, okay, I know the end result that they want. So a lot of times I usually do the feedback back and forth, which I'm still going to give them space for feedback. But it's like, okay, let's finish it all the way, 90%.
Right.
Let's just answer. I'm not even going to give them any room for feedback. Well, I'm going to give them room for feedback, but I'm going to just complete it.
Not at the cost of moving forward.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to get this done.
Yes.
And if they're not responding, we're still going to get them that product. And it's going to be good because now you know their industry. You know what they need.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I know exact solution that they need, so let's just go ahead and produce it. And that's what allowed me to really, really think hard, because I'm it happened a few times, man. It happened.
Yes.
It happens. It's not out the year. Probably happened about 4.
Right. It's always a bigger deal in your mind when something doesn't go right. You forget about the 10 things that went perfectly fine,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But then you're like, why did that get stuck? That just stays in your mind so much more. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's go into the next part where you was when you left the law group that you was working with, and you decided to start your own law firm.
Yeah.
How was that transition?
Well, it was really interesting because I worked for a federal judge in D.C., and then I worked at one of the biggest law firms in the world, and then I went out and became an entrepreneur. And they're very different. I was sitting in a windowless room dealing with very complicated areas of tax law for Fortune 500 companies, but I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur at all. I just did, and I didn't actually even like that. I had no relationship with my clients. The work that I was doing, I didn't feel valued, even though it was worth sometimes tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. But I didn't feel as valued because I didn't have those relationships. Then I went out and became an entrepreneur in something totally unrelated to the law, and as I was beginning to wind that down, I realized I actually would like to go back to focusing on my law practice, but be an entrepreneur at the same time. So I started thinking about how that might work, the two of those together. And I feel like I gained so many skills as a business owner and as a manager, and in dealing with clients in the entrepreneurial world, that I was just really excited about the opportunity of working with other businesses and still having that legal hat
Okay, dope. So you started Max Levine Office of
Law Offices of Max Levine. So I got to
Office of-
trademark that.
Yeah. It's fire, man. So like you started that in what year?
2020.
2020. Awesome. So that 2020 is a great year, man. It was a rough year and a great year because that's the year of the pandemic. That's when COVID came around, and that's actually how Content Factory was built. We built Content Factory in 2020.
Okay. I remember you and I talked about this briefly a long time ago. But yeah, you had this kind of phoenix from the ashes situation.
Yeah.
I remember you said you were doing a lot of event photography.
Yeah.
And then there was no such thing as events in 2020.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting because 2019 was our best year ever. And 2017 we started, so that's a big building. And then 2018 was like, okay, we getting some motion.
Right, now
2019
right.
was like, wow, we are crushing it. We about to take it to another level in 2020. The first 2 months went great. We had so much we was booked out, and then everything crashed. But that allowed all of the founding members of Content Factory Media Group to kind of like connect and collaborate more, and build a business. So like you started in 2020. How was that beginning part? Like what was that like for you?
For me, as a lawyer, it's tough because I needed to find my focus. Mm-hmm. So I don't like being what we call a door lawyer, which is you take any business that comes in the door, mm-hmm. right? But at the same time, you got to make a living. So there was this pressure that, hey, I knew I wanted to develop expertise in a specific area. I wanted to be a lawyer for a community, for a niche. I wanted to have business that was high quality, scalable, and repeatable. And that meant that I needed to decide on a niche that I wanted to work on, mm-hmm. and then take myself back to school on it. So one of the key moments was actually when you and I talked, and I presented to Choose to Create. And we were talking, RJ's like, hey, you're a business lawyer, come talk about business. I said, what do you want to hear about? And RJ said, copyright. And I just took myself back to school on copyright because I knew it was going to be important for whoever I worked with, right? I was already working on a lot of trademark stuff. And I was like, hey, I really like this. And I, a million years ago, I shot weddings and did portraiture. And you saw the old Pentax 6.7, in my office. And I remember, I really like working with these people. And I hit it off with you. I hit it off with David. I hit it off with Raul, a bunch of people from that group. And I was like, yeah, why don't I just kind of try and focus on this? And it all came together because I like the area of law. I like the people who need that area of law. And I just felt like this is a great niche for me that felt very rewarding. So that's kind of the biggest issue in the transition was I wanted to be able to offer a lot of value and expertise and make money out of that. And all that pointed to me to deciding, hey, I need a niche. And this really fit.
That's amazing. I love that, man. I love hearing stories like that, man, because I'm really, really, really big on investing in our own. So we invest locally, and we invest in the people that rocks with us. And we invest not only with our energy and our time, but we invest with our dollars.
Right.
And that's really what the foundation of everything that we do here is. We really is doing something that's not just talk, but actually doing it, right? So we are doing Choose to Create, and Choose to Create, it's actually an in-person meetup every third Wednesday in Fort Lauderdale. You guys got to pull up.
Yeah.
If you're in Fort Lauderdale in Florida, you guys got to pull up to it. It's a dope vibe. So we was at Choose to Create. We was doing our meetup, and then I seen you come into the door. I'm like, okay, it's most times it's creatives that come through, right. And I'm like, okay, he's a lawyer, and I'm like, what's up, man? You hanging? He's like, yeah, I'm coming here to hang out. I'm like, wow. I was like, that meant a lot, because at the end of the day, it's all about time, and time is the most valuable resource that we have. So anybody that invests their time to hang out with us or spend time with me is very, very, that means a lot to me. So when I seen him, I'm like, okay, he's coming to actually engage with us, and he was taking notes, he was vibing with us and stuff like that. So the way that we do it, Choose to Create, is that we want to make sure that everybody that's in the community has a chance to speak, because no matter what level of expertise you at or whatever you're doing, you have something to bring to the table,
Right.
and you have a voice, and your voice matters. So it's giving us a platform to like actually practice and speak in front of a group, do a presentation, collaborate with other people, and bring your ideas forward. You know, so like we was vibing, you came through and kicked it, and I was like, yeah. So you're gonna be presenting soon, man. Like, what? I forgot. I was like, yeah, 2 months. Like, I got a spot open here at this month here if you want to present. And
when RJ's not saying this over the next 3 weeks, I was nervously texting him like, okay, so like, can I talk about this? Can I talk about that? You want me to talk about this? You want me to talk about that?
Yeah, so like I sent out a link to everybody in the group, like, yo, what you guys want to talk about? You know, I just kept asking, and for some reason surveys don't really work that good online on like Instagram or online. I really don't get that much feedback. I probably got like one response, but I talk to a lot of people, so I just in every conversation I just bring it up, and I'm like, hey, what you guys in the law, like what do you want to learn from like a business lawyer if you had a chance to like speak to one? So that's kind of like how I gathered the information, and then I told you, and then when you came through, bro, you brought it. I mean, you brought it. You opened my mind to so many different things, and you opened your man. Like a lot of the creatives there was like, wow, you know. And my mentor David, he reached out to you, and I eventually reached out to you, and a lot of other creators reached out to you. So it was so cool that the fact that just coming out to Choose to Create, coming out just as a guest, and then eventually as a speaker, and then even from that experience, like yo, this is my niche.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it added a lot of value to me personally, obviously, because it really helped me define what I wanted to work on, and it also just kind of like tightened us as a community in the sense that like, hey, I'm helping everybody there understand how the law is on your side and kind of what issues, what lenses you need to look at your business through that you might not be thinking about from my perspective. Mm-hmm. And I'm also developing relationships with awesome creators. I'm developing a focus on my own business from your invitation. And I just felt like it's, I think you and I both share the notion that community is really important and that it's a very rewarding aspect of the work that we do. And so Choose to Create was just like this awesome, it just gave us all so much and continues to give us all so much as a presenter and as a participant. So I'm a huge fan. It just really worked out.
No, that's like every time I hear stories like that, I'm like, oh, this is worth it, man.
That's why I do that.
Yeah, it's worth it, man. Because sometimes it's like, oh, it's a lot of work to kind of plan it, but like people like that gives me life. You feel what I'm saying? Like people like energizes me. Like I can't just be on the screen. I can't just be like editing. Like nah, like I'll enjoy it, but people actually give me like energy.
Right.
So it's like always having that community and having people to like connect with and bounce ideas with is like so essential to everything I do.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So like, all right, so you was able to find your niche by just coming out, hanging out to Choose to Create. Yeah. That is amazing. Like
I can't believe I didn't tell you that already.
Yeah, that is amazing, man. That is so cool, man. Cause like finding a niche is so difficult, man. Like finding a niche is like even as a photographer or a video producer, it's like, okay, you could do weddings, you could do maternity photos, you could do newborn photos, you could do so many events, you could do so many different genres of content. And I remember one of my mentors, Kevin McDonald, he was like, he asked me, what do you do? I was like, I do photography, I do weddings. I was naming all of the different events and different things that I do. And he's like, okay, he listened. He's like, all right, that's great, man. But it would be awesome if you find a niche, because if somebody's looking to hire a wedding photographer, they're not going to want to hire somebody that does,
20 other things.
Yeah. Right. They want to hire somebody that does this one thing. If they're looking for photos for their newborn photographer, you can look it up. Like, look up newborn photographers. They have specifics for that.
Yep.
So it's like, just try to find your niche. And I was like, okay, find your niche. I went in the whole whirlwind for years trying to figure that out. Still didn't figure it out. And then I've been working with David for years, and we met in 2017, and we started working. And like probably like 2 years later, 2020, he had a discussion. He was leading Truth to Create. And I was like, how do you find your niche? And he's like, he made it so simple. He's like, oh, it's easy. Who you like working with? I was like, it's easy. Who you like working with? That makes sense.
Yes. Especially for a guy like you,
Yeah.
because you get that reward from people. I'm like that also. I was working on things that would excite other people, like multi-million-dollar corporate deals.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there in a windowless room looking up tax law and not like really talking to anybody. And other people would be super excited about it. Mm-hmm. But for me, that interpersonal aspect was missing. And to me, that is a key question. Who do I like working with? And to work with guys like you, to work with guys like David, super creative, awesome business people, just fun people to deal with, excited about what they do. For me to help out and just contribute and push you a little bit higher and further, that makes me feel good when I get home. Mm-hmm. And that's always the question. What makes you feel good when you get home? For guys like you and me, it's who do you want to work with, right?
Yeah.
Some people are just like super excited about, I don't know, F1 racing. So like if they're doing something related to F1 racing, then they're happy, right? But for guys like you and me, I think that's the question. Who do you want to work with?
Yeah.
You know, that's what energizes me.
And it's just that simple.
Yeah.
Who do you want to work with?
Yeah, David's like this brilliant guy. He always makes everything seem so simple.
Yeah.
He's so like, damn smart. That's the problem.
And he just, I'm like, wow. Like, so I just started thinking, who do I want to work with?
Right.
Like, I like working with business entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
You know? And then, like how you said, I'm able to help them.
See, that's what I had noticed with you, like from day one when we were talking. You have these two things. So you have this like massive creative energy. Like RJ's telling me, he's like waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and he's like putting pencil to paper. And then you also have this energy of wanting to help other people, wanting to push them forward and higher. And I saw that like this is it. Like, okay, this is business for you. Mm. Like you're gonna help people get their message out there by harnessing your creative energy, and you're gonna have that satisfaction of helping people. And it's like it is a good mix for you. Yeah, and it's very clear.
Yeah, it's perfect, man. And that's what goes to like meeting people, man. Right. Just having conversations and meeting people. Like that's how I came across. I'm like, oh, thank you. I think I figured it out.
Right, exactly.
You know, so like that's amazing, man. So you was able to find your niche, you got that, and then you started rolling. How has it been since like working with creatives? Like what's one or two things that you get like how has it been like?
It's been great. The main thing to me is I've really enjoyed who I've been working with. I'm working with people at different stages in their careers, and that's been really educational for me. Okay. So I'm offering a lot of free guidance to people at the beginning of their careers. Like I'm talking to this awesomely talented like director of photography, and she's an amazingly creative videographer, but she's very early on in her career. And to me, I just want to sit down and have 20 minutes with her to say, hey, here's what you gotta be thinking about. You don't have to pay me. Mm-hmm. Here's what you got. Here's like the lenses you need to look at your business through, so you don't get in trouble, you don't waste money, you don't lose money, you don't get, I don't have a fight with a client. So to me, that's been exciting working with people in different stages of their careers. I always love learning a new topic and learning what other people's businesses are like. Mm-hmm. So that's been fun. There's been some challenges in terms of just finding how to reach out to more people. That's always interesting. So obviously I love talking to you. I love talking to other creators. Instagram's been a lot of fun with photographers. I've had a lot of good back and forth with people asking questions, particularly about copyright. It's been going great. I'm pretty happy with where things are.
One thing that I really like that you mentioned to me was like you're not just creating a photograph, you're not just doing a video, it's an asset.
Yes.
These are like assets.
Yes.
These are like property. This is like intellectual property.
Yes. So, okay, we're going to talk to everybody now because I just heard me say this 5 times. When you are a creator, you're creating. Okay, you're creating things, and those things are intellectual property. And you need to even though you're working for a client, right, you are still creating objects that can have enduring value. Okay. Every photograph you take is at least a lottery ticket. So I know so many stories of people who like, there's a great story, this photographer in Louisiana, he shot like weddings and portraits, and by his own right, some of the pictures were just meh, you know, they're okay. But Britney Spears grew up in that town, okay? So he has some of the earliest photos of Britney Spears,
wow.
right? Now he protected his copyright. So when people started using those photos without his permission, he got paid an awful lot. Why? Because he treated his work like assets. When Britney Spears married some dude for like 5 minutes from that town, that guy's grandmother had paid this photographer to take a picture of him, to do a portrait with like a bay of hail and a bale of hay in the background, right? And the guy admitted it wasn't a fantastic picture, but when Britney Spears married this dude, he had the only picture of him, right? So that's like, he treated, and he had the copyright, he had registered the copyright, and I think he sued like 12 news outlets for using that picture without his permission, like 10 years after he took it or whatever.
Wow.
He got paid.
Yeah.
You're creating assets, particularly when it comes to copyright law, like make sure you're protecting the value of those, because those were just like family portraits and stuff. But when you're using commercial work and as your, or artistic work, you know, if you're trying to do more of an artistic approach, all of that stuff reflects your talents as a creator, and you should protect it as an asset. And so it's not just a lottery ticket. You can sell it for stock. You can, you know, it can blow up in a number of ways, and you want to make sure that you get the value of that.
Yeah, see what I'm talking about? The dream team. So I was like, what is it? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's the first place I learned about the dream team. So when you hear me talk about the dream team, it's not me. I just took it from a guy and I just used it. But basically, the dream team is your accountant, your banker, and your lawyer. And having a business lawyer is so important, because they're going to give you some advice that you don't know. And that's one of the advice that I was able to get just from like talking with you on a regular. Just hanging out, talking with you, and just like, yeah, I got some good advice. So like, that's one of the things that I always tell content creators or any young entrepreneur that wants to start a business. Is like, okay, get your accountant, get you a lawyer, and get your at least you can get a banker anywhere. I mean, just call them. Yeah. You know, every month or something. Just bring them donuts.
They have options. even the bankers. I mean, it's hard to find bankers these days, but I know 2 around here that are great. And talk to them occasionally. You're gonna realize there's options for you that you're not thinking of, because you're so focused on the core of your business that the guys like me and the accountant and the banker will be like, hey, you know, we can actually accelerate that, or we can protect that, or hey, wait a second, you're accelerating towards a brick wall, you know? So I'm a big believer that, you want to stay like super focused on what's making you money and driving towards your future, but it's the guys like me who are watching the flanks and making sure that you're going in the right direction and you're protected.
What's some of the things that you would tell like a creative? I know this is not if you want to get more advice, you're gonna have to pay him for this, but we're just having a conversation, and you guys are in on this candid conversation. Like, so a new content creator, you meet him, you reach out to your Instagram, or you meet him in person, and he's doing this thing. Like, what's something he needs to be aware of? Yeah.
So the 3 things I always focus on, and you and I have spoken about all these. Number 1, when you're doing, and this is kind of cheating because it's a lot of things. When you're doing business, do it through a business, right? Have an LLC, have a corporation, you got that all in place, and then make sure that you're doing business as that business, right? So don't mix your personal funds. Have an accountant to make sure that you know how much money you are making and not making, and that everything's locked up tight. That protects your personal assets. There's a lot of reasons you want to do that. So that number 1 is have that business entity, do business through that business entity. Number 2 is contracts. You know that I'm like praising, you know, I'm a contract evangelist. Everybody's got to have contracts with their clients. RJ is a member of this awesome creative community. He's dealing with collaborators all the time. He's working with other photographers, other videographers, editors, people with all kinds of talents. You got to have agreements with them too. You got to define those relationships so that if something comes up that you didn't anticipate, you say, oh, here's how we're going to deal with it. Or we've already got that locked down. So contracts is number 2. And then number 3 is for creatives, you got to understand copyright. You have to have a basic understanding of copyright because the law is so on your side. I don't want you giving those rights away unless you're getting paid for them. And I don't want you complicating your claim to those rights. So if you're working with clients, if you're working with collaborators, these are people who could potentially complicate your ability to make money off of those assets that you're creating. So those are the 3 things I want to introduce like every creative entrepreneur to is, business entities, contracts, and copyright. Now there's a lot of other stuff, but those are the kind of those lenses that I talk about that I want you to be looking at your business through. Legally, those are the 3 main ones.
That's the proper foundation right there.
Yep.
That's some good stuff, man. That's really important, especially, starting your business and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
You want to do it the right way, and one of the things too that I always talk about, and I do this mainly to I do this to make sure I'm keeping myself on point. Right. So it's one thing to be operating as a freelancer, and it's another thing to be operating as a business owner, and it's another thing to be operating as a collaborator.
Right.
These are 3 different lanes. Like freelancing for me is like you just taking any gig that comes in.
Right.
You're just like a photographer for hire. And you could be a business owner still operating as a freelancer. Mm-hmm. So that's how I tell myself, even though you have an LLC and I have a incorporation, whatever, you could still be operating that business as a freelancer.
100%.
If you don't have a niche, if you don't have SOPs in place, if you don't have a structure,
right.
If you don't have a structure for that business, you're still operating from okay, somebody call you, you're going to a gig. Somebody call you, it's like that's a freelancer. You're being a freelancer. If you always physically have to do the job, that's basically freelancing. As a business owner, you have a brand, you have SOPs, you have a team that works with you, and you're like the salesperson. You're the organizer. You're the team leader. Yeah. You're the motivator. You're the trainer. Like you're like the coach.
Right. You're trying to build something that's not just your personal performance.
Exactly.
Right.
It's more than just you.
Right.
So that's a transition where people, when I move from being a freelancer, and then people that have come back to me and want to hire me, and they see that, it's a team. It may be another photographer going to cover that event. Right. It may be another videographer going to cover that event. It's like, where's RJ? It's like, RJ's somewhere else probably covering another event, or is in a meeting or a network. Like, I have to do other things where I have to physically be there.
Right.
That's like networking. That's
and RJ has an impact on this product because of the SOPs, because of the people he chooses to work with, because of how he trains them. It's not just RJ clicking a shutter. Right.
It's a whole effort.
Right.
It's a team effort.
Right.
To get an end result. So that's like operating as a business. Right.
Exactly.
But even as a business, there's we collaborate with other agencies. Mm-hmm. So now that's a different protocol when you work with another agency.
Yeah.
The same way you charge for when you're doing business as a business owner is not the same way you're going to get paid when you collaborate with an agency, because the agency has to cover all of the business expenses, the insurance, and all that. So now you're kind of working as a freelancer when you start working with an agency, but not really. Because I like to work with just a few agencies or people that's like in my same world that we could kind of benefit, mutual beneficial. So it's not like I'm just running around doing any gig, anybody that call me. That's more freelancing. But like once you start collaborating with other agencies, there's certain parameters and things that contracts you have to sign, and certain things where you're representing their brand.
Yes. Right. Yeah, and it's great because the work comes in a little bit more easily, right? Mm-hmm. And you have that repeatability because you know what they're looking for. You know what kind of product they have to deliver. And you have that relationship in place. You get that call. It's not like you got to go through that deep discovery dive, right? You're like, okay, we worked together before. You know what I do. I know what you do. Yeah. We'll have a quick discussion, get it done. But yeah, it's a very different relationship when you're talking about like the digital agency, the branding agencies, those kinds of things.
Yeah. So that's mainly like a lot of the collaborations that we do is with marketing and digital agencies,
Right.
because they have a bunch of clients that they're constantly creating, these ad campaigns and these different things that they're doing to generate leads for them. But they don't do photo or video.
Right.
So
They're
then they
not
partner.
getting that creative element into the content. They know what they want out of the content, but you're able to help deliver that high quality and that creative element. Right.
Yeah. So, but they don't necessarily want to work with a freelancer. They would prefer to work with an actual business.
Right.
Because that's a business is proven to kind of like
you have that portfolio, that track record that they know what they're going to get with you.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the three ways that I look at business, and that's kind of like from my experience of like starting as a freelancer, having a business but still working as a freelancer.
Totally. I mean, and there's like a legal mirror image of that, right? So when let's just take a photographer. Photographer first gets in the business. Here's the contract. You give me $400. Here's your photos. Right. That's how that freelancer kind of thing's like. Or I'm getting hired by this guy. I'm the second shooter. Okay. Here's the SD cards. That's it. Right. Give me my money. Here's the SD cards. Give me my SD cards. But once you rip the images, and that's so not reflective of the money that you can get from the assets that you're creating. And then as you develop the business side of it, and you're that business, you're not just that freelancer. I want my guys to start thinking about, I'll license you these rights to those pictures, right? But maybe I'm gonna keep the copyright. Maybe I'll give you the copyright. Maybe I'll charge a little more if I assign that copyright, or I'll just give you that broad license. And that's like where I start educating, going from that freelancer, like, hey, I've now turned maybe a hobby into a profession, or I'm starting to get paid. There's this legal change in how I want my clients to think about their businesses. And then once you start working with agencies, I mean, there's a much more sophisticated relationship that you're going to have with those kinds of, repeat customers where they're looking for that more finished product, that they want your creativity in there, and they're also giving that to their clients. So there's a new level of legal sophistication in those agreements as well.
Yeah. And it's and really like a lot of times too is like it's not necessarily like I'm just trying to do it's really just protecting the client and protecting ourselves as well.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're protecting the client, we're protecting ourselves, and we're protecting the creators, the content creators that work with us, the collaborators, right? We want to make sure that they are protected. Like everybody is kind of protected, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they're like, oh damn, why are you sending me this proposal or this contract or all this work? And it's like, hey, this is the process. Yep. There's plenty of freelancers out here. Right. Plenty of freelancers. They'll just show up and do the job, but at least you don't have that security, or you don't have that peace of mind. To know,
exactly. Right. And we talk about this. I talk about this with David as well. I think it's so cool that you guys are all think about yourself on both sides of the contract, right? So you're a business owner, but you're like, oh, I'm collaborating with this guy. I used to be that guy. Yeah. So I want to make sure that guy gets treated fairly. Yeah. And as a lawyer, whether it's with collaborators or with clients, I never want my contracts to get in the way of your relationships, right? So if I'm telling you, hey, you got to argue hard for this, I'm telling you how to make that make sense to your clients and collaborators. And my contracts reflect your sales process. So in the work that we did together, the first question is hey, what's your process? Right?
Oh man.
Because I don't want to surprise a client with this contract that just looks like it has nothing to do with what RJ said. Yeah. No, the contract is going to follow the process that you've already created and the client is comfortable with. So I want that contract to take care of those situations where hey, things went sideways for some reason. Here's how we're going to handle it. Yeah. And I want that contract to back up, hey, those promises that RJ made during his sales process, here they are in writing, right? I want everybody to feel comfortable through that, and I still want everybody to be protected. So I never want to get in the way of a deal, I never want to get in the way of a relationship, but I do want to hammer out those points and define them.
I think that's one of the things that I really, really appreciated from you, because it's we really just had a conversation about how we work with collaboration, how we work with our clients, our whole sales process, right? Of from beginning to end to delivering a product, from photo shoots to video productions and commercials and stuff like that, right? And it's like from those conversations, it's like then you take that and you actually make that into an actual contract, right, or agreement.
Right. Yeah, and that's so key to me. Like I had a conversation yesterday with a photographer. He's like, "Hey, how much how much would this agreement cost? And can I just buy that agreement from you?" I'm like, "No, you don't want to do that. Like I want to craft an agreement that reflects your process. That way, you know what this agreement says. You're comfortable with defending it if a client asks you a question about it. And I want to educate you as to why we put this in here, why it reflects your process, and why it's important." So and that's the conversation that you and I had. So you could have a client come to you with the contract that we worked on, one of the contracts we worked on, and say, "Hey, what's this?" And you know what it is because I got it from you, right? It's already a part of your process, and we may have clarified a couple of the legal aspects of it, but now because of our relationship, you understand what that is and why it's in there, and it's not an impediment in your relationship with your client. So that's always my number one goal.
Yeah. That was like really, really cool for me. I'm like, oh shoot, like the whole conversation is in an agreement here.
Exactly.
So I could read it. I could even make adjustments like, oh, put some sauce here. I like putting sauce on
Don't put sauce in my agreements.
I like putting sauce on things. Man. Like, put some applesauce in there. But nah. Like that's the best thing. Like and then we have conversations afterwards. After everything is done. And that's like a part of that's what I do too. It's so strange. I'm like, he's in a different industry and he does a lot of the same thing that I do, like with my process.
Right.
So I'm like, wow.
But I think that's because we're both motivated by that. Like, hey, am I helping you out?
Yeah.
Is that working for you?
Yeah.
Tell me if that's working for you, right? So I think both you and I have that kind of outlook on our businesses, that's what we get that satisfaction from. So I think our processes are very similar in that regard.
Yeah. And there's two different things.
Yeah.
Like, wow, yeah, because like even I was just talking to one of our clients that we just did some content for, and I'm taking them through the process and everything because there's a process, so I'm taking them through it.
Right.
And we're at the editing process, getting ready for the first drafts again. And so once we're there, I was like letting him know, like once we deliver, it's not like I'm just gonna drop all this stuff on you and just say peace.
Right.
Nah, I'm gonna be here for you and just help you how you can implement it into your system.
Right.
And figuring out how to make it work into your system. And guess what? Even a month later, I'll come back and check in and see how is it working.
For sure.
And even if we have to make a slight adjustment, I'm going there. I'm gonna make the adjustment because I need you to produce. I need you to see
that
results.
value.
Yeah. Because
sure.
with results, that's not only a testimonial, that's a case study.
Right.
This is like showing you how this actually worked to help grow or help you reach more people.
Yeah.
So
and what's more powerful than that, right? Somebody can say, I made more money because of RJ, right?
That sounds good. Say that again.
I made more money because of RJ. That's what you need people on camera saying. That's it. Like, that's what people say yes to. Does this guy solve a problem that I can't solve? Yes. Does it make me more money? Yes. Okay, great. Done. Sign. Right?
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
And if checking in on them, making that high value little tweak afterwards, or even you check in on them and you find out, it's not really working for us. Okay, talk to me. Tell me why, right? You're able to address that. You're able to improve that relationship, improve that product. And it makes perfect sense.
And that goes back to having a team. Yeah. Because a lot of times when you have a team, you're not always like, it's like that duck that you see on the pond. He's chilling. He's able to answer the phones. Oh, you need problems? Right. But underneath that, he's pedaling away.
Yep.
So that's why you have to have that team because like a lot of things is going on underneath, but I'm able to answer the phone. I'm able to talk to you. I'm able to spend a little bit of time like having that conversation. You're able to have that dialogue. And that's the same thing whether I'm working with a law firm or whether I'm working with an accountant. It's like a lot of times the accountant has a team. I prefer working with an accountant that has a team because I'm going to be calling. Hey, man, what's going on? I want you to call me back. If you don't answer, I want you to call me back. But most times, I want you to answer.
Right. Right. Absolutely. For having that team, having those SOPs, right? So that your team knows exactly what to do when that business comes in the door, right? Have that written, hold everybody accountable to those things. That allows you to simplify the communication, simplify the things that can be simplified, and work on the things that you need to be thinking about.
Yeah.
Talking to those clients, coming up with those solutions, having that creativity, keep you focused on the high value work for sure.
Yeah. That's what it is, man. I appreciate you coming through for the podcast, man. This is Max is my guy, man. Like always 100 proof, man. You came through with that old, what was it, a Pentax camera?
Yeah, Pentax 6.7s. I was cracking up. I forgot who was in my office from Choose to Create, but like they were winding the shutter, and like, oh, what's that? And then it's a medium format camera, so 35 millimeter film's that big, but this film was that big. And when you click that shutter release, it's like a seismic moment. It's like an earthquake went off, especially to these kids who've never dealt with film, right? So you don't really, maybe they have a shutter, maybe not on these cameras that they're working with. And then it's like ka-chunk. So yeah, I shot weddings with that. I did portraiture with that. Fun camera.
Yeah. Nah, man. I seen that camera. I'm like, okay. I guess he's not just a lawyer.
Not just talking.
You might know what he's talking about here, man. So yeah, man. I really appreciate the work that you're doing with the content creators and really making sure that we're protected and that we're not only protecting our work, but we're educated.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's important to have that education, man. That's really, honestly, that's really the reason why I work with you. Like, really, to tell you the truth. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, you could give me the contracts, but it's not, I need that too.
Yeah. No, but the education is so critical in every business, but particularly for creatives.
Yeah.
Because, again, you all think you're just doing work for clients. You're not. Like I need to change your minds, right? And that's one of the areas one of the aspects I love is I'm able to get you guys to realize the value you have legally that reflects the way you think about your work, and you should. And it's you're creating those assets. You think about your work that way.
Yes, sir. So yeah, man, this is Choose to Create podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, RJ. Brother. You know I love working with you. And
yes, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to anybody.
Yes,
so
sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So you're gonna be able to get in touch with him. I'm gonna put all the links in the bio. But as you know, it's what we say it again?
Max Levine from the law offices of Max Levine. That's my tag on Instagram and all 30 of my followers on TikTok. So.
I gotta follow you on TikTok, man. I just made one.
There we go. You'll get to see my son making fun of me in every video. Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, so you make sure if you guys are choosing to create and choosing to start that business, make sure you reach out to a lawyer, even if it's not Max, it's not about that. It's about just getting that education, and if you do want to reach out to a great lawyer that'll walk you through the process, just reach out to Max. He always open to what is it, that 20-minute, like he does like a 20-minute, like a 20-minute chat.
Yeah.
Like for free.
Yeah, I'd want to get people pointed. I'd rather point you in the right direction and make sure you understand the values that you got to be having as an entrepreneur, because so many people aren't thinking of it that way. So I'm happy to, any creator, come talk to me. I'm happy to just give you that lens to look at your business through.
Yeah, Choose to Create. Peace.